All right, welcome back, dude. We got my good friend Carter, aka Baxate Abdallah. Man, dude, when did we first get connected?
I think we got connected sometime last year, maybe around summertime, and then I had you on my
Yeah, that's
podcast,
fun.
and it was crazy because at that time you had asked me during the podcast, I was talking to you about your entrepreneurship journey, and you're like, man, when are you going to do your own? And obviously since then so much has happened, and I honestly have to thank you for being somewhat of a catalyst, one of many catalysts in my life to make that jump. So
Dude, I can't take any credit for that. It's all you. I think it was just waiting to happen, essentially. I think it's very easy to tell when someone is an entrepreneur, or maybe they have the entrepreneurial spirit, but they haven't acted on it yet, and it was bound to happen. So I'm proud of you, dude. But let's talk about it. You just sold. You were one of the first guys at an AI software company that just sold to NVIDIA. That's like the pipe dream for any young entrepreneur out there. So I want to hear, what's that like? Can you explain, like, what does that process even look like? Selling your company to not just a massive company, but the biggest company in the world right now.
yeah, so I was a founding engineer at brev.dev. I joined as the third employee, actually early on this year. I joined in January, and we make GPUs really easy to use. And I think a lot of people have been asking me, like, was the goal always to get acquired? And truthfully, I was not super involved with a lot of the business stuff, especially when I first joined. I'm a newbie. The company's existed since December of 2020, except the mission statements aligned. The goal was not necessarily to get acquired. However, conversations started happening with NVIDIA. They started working with us last November, and really, it's kind of with everything. I think you and I both talk a lot about networking and making connections and how important that is. And truthfully, there were competitors that we had. There were people trying to tackle a problem in a similar space. But I got to give credit to Nader, the CEO of Brev. He is one of the most talented, most charismatic people I know. And he made connections that started basically spreading threads within NVIDIA. And they started showing interest early on this year. Conversations started happening, and it started off with a commercial partnership. So we were under the hood, really only using NVIDIA GPUs, and NVIDIA software is some of the best in class for AI development. And we just happened to glue those two together. And it was that glue that provided a lot of value to NVIDIA. And they saw the vision. They are trying to grow more into like the software space. They're fundamentally a hardware company. And it just made sense. And so they showed interest, and about 3-4 months ago is when negotiations started. And I know that's a relatively quick turnaround. It was a small company. We were 8 people, and a few back and forths, and a couple lawyer calls, and then as of July 1st, so literally a month ago now, we became I believe the term is NVIDIANs, but we joined NVIDIA.
Do you think that, I know I just asked you about this, do you think that they acquired you guys primarily for the IP, what you guys are building, or because they liked you, they wanted you on their team? Sometimes maybe they're just trying to poach you.
Yeah, I think every acquisition is different, and this particular case, I think Brev was still largely in its infancy as far as what it could have became. We could have kept building. We could have probably, I'm confident that we could have turned it into $1 billion company. But NVIDIA saw the value early, and they didn't. There's a term called acqui-hire, right? Where oftentimes they'll acquire a company purely for the talent, oftentimes even just disband the company altogether and be like, you guys are just really cracked engineers, or you're really talented at what you do. We just want you on our team. In this particular case, they wanted to keep the Brev name intact. And so we joined. Now we are the Brev Dev product at NVIDIA, and we're working on growing that to hopefully $1 billion software arm within NVIDIA. And so I would say that it was arguably a mix of them seeing the potential of the people and the product itself, but I would be hard pressed to say that they bought it for the existing IP and the actual product itself, because like I said, as far as what it can become, I think it's still in its infancy.
So yeah, they see the potential, and they're like, if we can help a little bit, we get a big piece of it. And it's like nothing to them in retrospect. So
Yeah, we're a rounding error on their bottom line as far as they're concerned, but
Nice.
it's
Yeah.
life changing for all of us. So.
Nice. And how do you guys make the decision? Like, all right, we think we could do this on our own, probably. How do you make or were you involved in that decision, or was it mainly the other two?
Yeah. So the co-founders obviously are the people who really make that decision in the board. However, there were discussions. Something that I really like about how our team is, we were 8 guys, really small, all really tight. And we would openly discuss stuff like this, and it made us feel valued as, employees, but really we all felt like a team. I think that the decision to sell, which I'm now paraphrasing because again, I wasn't really the one making the decision, is kind of twofold. One is that, Nader, for example, the CEO is 29. He has a wife now. He got married last month, 2 months ago. And he wants to start a family and wants to do all these things. And he, again, could probably grow it to $1 billion company. But at this stage of his life, he's thinking about, there's a lot of comfort in having some financial security of, okay, if I want to go build another one day I can, but at least now I can. He recently purchased a home and has now the safety net of sort of baseline financial comfort. He was making, similar to you, this, him and the co-founder paid themselves far below even than they paid any of the employees, which I think is actually the good sign of a good founder. And and then the other part of the decision was, this is nobody has a crystal ball. I think that AI obviously has so much hype right now. No one's really captured the value right now except for NVIDIA, right? NVIDIA is the one selling the shovels during the gold rush. And I have high confidence that there's going to be a sobering moment in investment space, in all of the business world when it comes to surrounding AI, to say, yes, this has value, but we don't exactly know how to turn it into dollars yet. And there's probably going to be a so-called AI winter, similar to how there was a crypto winter and all these things. I think that that's probably coming. And there was a conscious decision of, do we want to weather that and really kind of say, hey, this is now a 5-year, 10-year game? Or do we want to hedge our bets and build it within the sandbox that is, a $3 trillion company?
For sure. It's like saying, okay, you can go at it on your own and you have a smaller chance of success, but you'll make $1 billion or whatever, a couple $100 million. Or you can go with the route that leads to a high probability of success, but you have maybe half of what you would have normally earned.
Yeah.
It makes sense to go that route. I totally get it. Have you heard that analogy that a lot of people have been throwing around about when electricity wasn't invented? The person that made all the money was the guy who started refrigerators.
Oh, no.
Because and they were pretty much saying the refrigerator actually hasn't been invented yet in this new generation of AI, right? So it'll be I'm very curious. I'm really interested to see what kind of direction it goes in, what products come out of it. You'd look at all of the biggest companies in the world right now that are leading in their sectors. They weren't the first one, right? There was Yahoo and Bing and all these before Google. There was Microsoft and BlackBerry, Samsung, all these companies before Apple, right?
Yeah.
Who knows? Maybe the big one hasn't been invented yet, but yeah, you're getting to ride through the storm, like you said, with the biggest, baddest ship. Why not take that? And then you'll get that experience as a young founder. And, I know we talked about this, maybe one day do something else. So that's exciting, dude.
Yeah.
Can you talk about how did you get involved with this company early on? Because you were doing your own thing, you were doing social media, and then how did these guys hit you up? How did you get brought into Brev?
Yeah, so it really is kind of a universe aligning moment. I talk a lot about luck on my platform and privilege and all of these things. However, I do think that there is some science to, if you think about luck as hitting a bullseye or hitting a target, you can always increase the surface area of the target. And I am, not to toot my own horn, I'm a talented enough engineer that I was being poached by a number of different places, not necessarily Brev specifically, but my blinders were almost on when I was not really considering these other opportunities. Sometime in late last fall, I got promoted at my company, and I very quickly realized I didn't want the prize at the end of the game I was playing. And so I knew that I had to essentially switch games. And that's when I sort of, again, take the blinders off, and I'm like looking for new opportunities. And Nader was actually my childhood Arabic tutor in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah. So I've known Nader since he was 12 and I was 7. And we've maintained like loose contact. I moved to San Francisco again for a totally different job, and Brev was based in San Francisco. And last November, he just calls for, wishing me a happy Thanksgiving. And as he put it, he could smell blood in the water. And he had been, again, trying to hire me for a couple of years at that point. And he's like, when you get back to San Francisco, come co-work with us for a week and just see if you like the vibes, if we vibe. And then I got back, I worked with them. I was like, this is way more fun than what I'm doing. I believe in the vision way more. I knew that I wanted to get in the AI space. I had some experience with that in college, and it just seemed like the right fit at the right time. I get a lot of people who ask me, like, how do I get involved with startups? Especially at that stage, it is like, it's unfortunate to say, but you have to know somebody. Like, you have to know somebody. Yeah. You're not going to see a job listing on some Indeed website for a 2-person company. That doesn't exist. And so, yeah, it was more the fact that it was a connection from childhood that we maintained, even loosely. And it just so happened he ended up becoming very successful, and I had the skills necessary at the right time, and joined in January.
Dude, people talk about compounding interest and they think of it just as a fraction, but everything in your life compounds. If you're extremely social and you try and get in as many different circles as possible when you're young, and you just like show up to networking events and you talk to people and you put yourself out on the internet, which I think is the most important thing you can do in this day and age, you're opening up doors that you won't even know you're going to be able to walk in 10 years from now. So it's really important to obviously know people. But, on that note of like privilege, I saw a video the other day and you're like, I'm extremely privileged. I don't think you need to say that, dude. I think there's so many people these days that are like, let's get controversial here. You need to acknowledge your privilege. Like why? Does that really make you feel better? Does that really help you at all? Like, does me saying I was born in this country, or I knew this person or this or whatever, does that really help you on your path? No, it makes you feel better, and that's not going to do anything for you. Like, we're out here like trying to help, trying to give good information, and some people just like aren't even able to absorb that. I think these days people want you to talk about how you had some advantage, because that gives them more of an excuse to say like, well, I'm not that great.
I completely agree with that. I do think it's important to acknowledge your privilege more for not necessarily to help other people, but more as a sense of humility for the person acknowledging their privilege, to basically say that I think that a lot of people, when they talk about success, and whether you're a billionaire or even just, the owner of a small company in your town, that was a team effort, whether it was the team in your community, whether that was your parents, whether that was your siblings, it doesn't matter. It was a team effort to get there. And so I don't like the idea of making it alone. And so when I say that I acknowledge my privilege,
I agree on that.
Yeah. When I say I acknowledge my privilege, I more mean that I was given all the tools to be successful, and you still have to go build those yourself. As far as what you were saying, like, what does it do for the other person? It gives them an excuse. We were talking about Hormozi earlier. One of my favorite quotes by Hormozi is, there's someone who had it worse and done it better.
Yeah.
And I really like that one, because oftentimes I will get comments basically saying, you had everything handed to you, Nepo baby, whatever. And truthfully, there are people
You're
who
tall.
Yeah.
You have good hair, and people like anything, bro.
Which I want to pivot off of that in a second. But I do think that there's always going to be somebody who had it worse and done it better. And similarly, the converse of that is also true. There's somebody who had way more opportunities than either of us have ever had and have done nothing with them. Yeah. And as far as the whole, like, I think privileges as well, I think people look at them in a negative light when it comes to, taking away from your success or whatever. And whether it is the fact that you were, born in America or born tall or whatever it is, I truly believe that, like, you should take every unfair advantage you have and take that unapologetically. One thing that you talked about early on in your business career, which I think is very true for a lot of people, is the need to feel like I did this all myself. And it's just an ego thing, and it's natural to do that. But in reality, I think that you should take, again, every unfair advantage that you were given. For example, it's so small and so insignificant, but I'm Lebanese. Nader's also Lebanese. Like the way that we met was because he was going to tutor me Arabic. And it's like that is a privilege in the sense that we have the connection. Like I probably partially got hired because I was a Lebanese kid and he was also Lebanese, but that happens all the time in the business world. And if you think that it's a true unapologetic meritocracy, you're lying to yourself.
Yeah.
Like the best person for the best job does not always get that job.
It's who you know at the end of the day, 100%. And we could talk more about that later, getting into, you know, college, people questioning if it's worth it or not, Greek life, all that stuff. So I think that's definitely valuable. But going back to being hired at Brev, right? What was actually your title, and like what did you do in those early days? And did that stay consistent while you were there, or did your role kind of change over time because you were, you know, one of the guys in control of the ship? And did you have to do a little bit of everything? What was that like working in a startup?
Yeah, I think that so my title was founding engineer, and that's fairly typical for one of the first hires at a startup. I was not a co-founder. I know that there's some confusion around that. Founding engineer typically means one of the first hires. You are kind of driving the initial design of the product, building it, whatever. But also when you're on a small enough team, again, I joined and we were basically 3-4 of us working for some time, and then by the time we got acquired, we were 8, so we were still really small. Think about everything that goes into running a business. I'm sure you know well. I like the phrase, you wear a lot of hats. Mm-hmm. And so I would do a lot of engineering work. I was primarily working on the back end, a lot of the infrastructure stuff, making sure that if we scaled to 10 times the number of users tomorrow, that our system wouldn't just break, stuff like that. However, because I had the social media presence and that's part of the value I brought, I did a lot of marketing. So I basically took charge of all of the social media stuff. And even if Nader, the CEO, was in front of the launch, I was the man behind the camera because I had been doing that for so long on my social media that I kind of had a vision for, okay, this is what will either look good on camera. This is what will sound good. This is what will resonate. If he was getting a little bit too verbose and like things, I was like, no, be a little bit punchier. Like people have short attention spans. Yeah. All of this stuff that we've learned from doing social media for so long absolutely has applications there. So I would say that I was also very, very involved with marketing, kind of putting Brev's name in more of the public sphere. It was well known within the small San Francisco ecosystem, but obviously to build a big company, you need to expand beyond that. And other than that, I would say that Nader and I are very similar in a lot of ways. And I think that people way underestimate like how a team functions and the, for lack of a better word, the vibes, like the vibes of a team. And I think that we were very good about creating like a company culture that was, it sounds cringe, but like work hard, play hard in the sense that we would, go to the gym in the middle of the days. And I'm obviously someone who's very passionate about fitness. And so making sure that everyone was performing at the top of what they're able to do and not feeling like they're just basically throwing their life away for this thing. I think that so many people have the grind until you die attitude, which if you are omitting, for example, a social life or omitting your health and all that stuff, you're going to perform worse. And so I also felt like I played an important role in sort of helping morph that team culture.
Keeper of the vibes. I like it.
Yeah.
So, and then what on a daily basis, like, well, first of all, how long after you got hired was the 4th person hired? How fast did the team expand?
Yeah, so it was only about 2 weeks after I joined did we hire. It truly was a family affair. This is another thing where we talk about small startups. The 4th employee was actually the CTO and co-founder's younger brother, and but he's a very, very talented engineer,
very capable.
Yeah, and we had a really good mix of skill sets. Like I purely do back end. The 4th hire, he's a full stack guy, but he just has an eye for product. So like building the actual user experience, he's phenomenal at that. And then probably 3 or 4 weeks after that, we ended up acquiring a team, and these guys are some of the most passionate, hardworking people I've met. They were 3 kids in college. One of them actually ended up dropping out of UT Austin, believe it or not. And so they were building a similar product in college, no money, taking classes. And we got on a call with them.
How'd you meet them?
That's a funny story. Their CTO at the time, again, these are college kids. They just came up with titles, but he was the CTO, and they were doing competitor analysis. Their group chat name was actually Brev Ops because they knew that we were their biggest competitor. Yeah. And one of them, while doing competitor analysis, signed up for Brev using their company email. And so we do our own research on who our customers are. Are they going to be a power user? Are they going to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on compute? And we're like, oh, Agora Labs. That's kind of interesting. So we look it up. And we get in contact with them, and there's a hilarious photo of them FaceTiming and getting so mad at, his name is Tom, getting so mad at him because they're like, why would you sign up using your company email, you absolute buffoon? Like,
they said that live on the FaceTime?
This is them talking to each other. Like, this is they're doing a debrief afterwards of like, you screwed us, basically. Like, now the competitor knows about us. They're going to squash us like a bug.
That's crazy.
And Nader, I think this is actually, Brev was his third company. And so what he says is that first-time founders see competitors and they get scared, right? They're like, oh my God, these are our competition. Second-time founders see competitors and they're like, oh, friends, you care about the same problem I do. Let's see if we can like work together. And oftentimes you won't be able to. In this particular case, they dropped everything. They came out to San Francisco for a couple weeks.
What was the third-time founders one?
The third time founders. So the second time founders was actually he created it was a cannabis payment company actually for like dispensaries in San Francisco, and he just sold it really quickly. So if I were to say a lesson that he learned from that one, which he talks about, is that you can create value and sell something really quickly if you want to. That was more of like I need money because I don't want to go back to my W-2 job this quickly.
Yeah.
So maybe the third time founder is actually the lesson of the competitors, but
I fully agree, dude. It's really interesting, bro. The past couple of weeks, my like the top of my list of priorities has been dropping everything. If I can get on the phone with someone who's way above me in my specific space, clothing, do it. In the past 2 weeks, I've been on the phone with the founder of Built, founder of Comfort, and then yesterday, Kill Crew. These guys are all companies that are doing anywhere from like a few million a month to like tens of millions a month. And they're the nicest guys ever. And they're just offering me like fucking tips and tricks, like how to. Yesterday, fucking Colty shout out Colty if you're watching this. I started Squid Hoss, by the way, because of Kill Crew, because I liked what they were doing. And yesterday he was sending me voice notes on Instagram. Yeah, make sure that when you're looking at 3PLs, you're looking at this. And by the way, like, this is how you set up your supply chain. I'm a competitor of his in a way. Maybe if I'm not right now, I might be in the future, but he's just like helping me. And I thought that was so cool. And I think it just shows a lot about like where you are on your own journey. It's like, if you try and like shut somebody out and, try and squash them, maybe that seems like a good decision in the moment, but that person's going to come after you later in life. Whereas that, maybe that this thing turns into a collaboration one day once we're bigger. Who knows? So I think that's very well said. And then obviously these guys end up coming and working for you, right?
Yeah. So then they ended up joining, and now one of them, his name is Sean. He's one of the most. He studied econ in undergrad, and he was like the head of AI ML at Brev. Like he just became super technical in terms of AI ML. And now that we're within NVIDIA, he's crushing it. I mean, he can talk with some of the most talented AI ML engineers at NVIDIA, which is, again, for someone who didn't study that, I think is incredible. And then we hired one additional person about, I don't know, a month or so later. And then acquisition was, a short two months after that.
Nice, dude. And what is that like work environment like? How many hours are you guys putting in at that startup? So many people want to do the absolute bare minimum, and you're just never going to get anywhere with that. So I'm curious, how many hours were you guys putting in on a weekly basis? Like, what time are you showing up? What time are you going home? Was it like, fuck, this sucks, I've been here for 14 hours? Or was it like, I love this shit because it's like we're doing something important?
Yeah, I think that, first thing that you said, which I think is absolutely true, is people think that entrepreneurship is almost like a hack to make money, which is absolutely not the case, right? They think, 9 to 5, I don't want to work 40 hours a week. I want to work 8 or 4, right? It's like, I
want freedom.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I made a video recently where I was saying like, if anyone who you look at who has incredible work-life balance, those who you aspire to be, definitely went through a time of imbalance. Like it's almost a requirement. You can spread it out over the course of your career and never become something truly extraordinary, or you can do that upfront investment. And a lot of people do that upfront investment and it doesn't pay off. But for the people who do and it does pay off, that's the people who you look up to, and they have a lot to go off of. As far as like at the startup, as I mentioned, we cared a lot about like fitness and stuff like that. So I personally, we would start at 10 a.m., which is nice. We had the freedom to, I would work out in the mornings, get on, and then we would do stand up. We would eat lunch together and do all that, and then eat dinner together most nights as well. Work most weekends. I would say that I don't fully agree with what Nader says about this, but when he's talking about like work-life balance, he says that work-life balance straight up doesn't exist, in the sense that he thinks that burnout comes not from when you overwork yourself, but when you're doing work that isn't fulfilling.
I agree.
Yeah, you could burn out doing 4 hours a day of something that you are absolutely miserable at, and you could do 15-hour days on something that actually fulfills you and never burn out, which I actually do agree with that. I do think that there still is the opportunity to burn yourself out on doing something you love if you are not, again, for example, like working out and hanging out with family and all that stuff. But yeah, I would say that on an average week, which granted there were average weeks and non-average weeks, it's very non-linear in terms of the work that you do. Before launches, when we were first doing the NVIDIA partnership, I remember there was one feature we were launching, and it was going live on LinkedIn, on NVIDIA's LinkedIn at like 2 p.m. and on a Monday, Tuesday, something like that. And the feature was not ready. And so the entire night before, we're grinding the entire day of, I think that day we shipped to production like 30 some times. And we are there like pretty much from like 8 a.m. until 11:30 p.m. or something, just trying to get this feature. Even once it's gone out, there's still problems. So we're just bug squashing like live. Probably, I would say on average, anywhere from like 60 hours, maybe a little bit more. Because again, I think that if you think of like a Monday to Friday, that is a lot. But if you add in Saturday, Sunday into that, it actually becomes a little bit more manageable.
Definitely. And you know, the part that people don't think of, it's after your work finishes, what else are you doing to become a better person, to become a better entrepreneur, to become more connected? You being in Austin right now, you know, Carter's out here visiting a friend and he's like, yeah, I'll come on the podcast. This, you know, it's fun and we enjoy this, but this is work, because this could someone might see this and really like what you're saying. That could lead to a number of things down the line that benefit you like crazy. So, you know, yeah, you're putting in like 60, 70, 80 hours a week, but it's also enjoyable. And that's the thing, is like, if you can find something that you really like, it's not work. It's not, you know, a hassle to be showing up on the weekends or staying late. It's like, you want to do that. You would rather do that. So, and it sounds like that's how you feel about it, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about, you know, you said you've worked online before, right?
Works at what now?
Worked online, like remote.
Yeah.
I would love to know the difference between the benefits versus negatives of working remote versus in person at the office in the startup scene. Because right now, my startup, all online. We're all spread out across the country. I'm hoping to raise money soon so I can get everyone here in Austin, get an office for us. I can only imagine that that's going to, you know, 5x our productivity for a number of reasons, but I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I worked remotely at my first job out of college, and that was a much larger organization. I would say that, you know, remote work is great for people who, in my opinion, are a little bit more established, not only in their career, but also in their life. You know, if you have a kid at home who has to wake up and go to school, and you know, have people who rely on you, and your commute is really long, and your career really and truly is like, this is what I make money from so I can go pay the bills, I can understand the appeal for remote work in that environment. But while you're young and while you're hungry and while you have the ability to, again, like work longer hours and do all that stuff, I mean, so we would, was honestly probably my favorite part of the startup, is we're working together. We're all in that room, but then we'll go to the gym together, and then we'll go get drinks together. And then everything we do would be together. And so some of the best like conversations we would have would literally be one of our favorite bars is like a 15-minute walk from the office. And you can just get like these massive punch bowls, and we're just like a punch bowl or two deep, and you know, you're feeling it a little bit, you feel a little buzz, and that's when the conversations start flowing. And it's like that just can't happen remotely. And even still, or like you're walking to the gym, or even just over lunch at the table, and though having that constant like feedback loop of just talking to one another is where I think problems really, really get solved. I think so many people, when they're remote, you have set meeting times, or even like, hey, can you hop on a meeting real quick? It fundamentally is different. What I really liked about what Nader said when it comes to like remote versus in person, we called ourselves intensely non-remote. So he even like takes it a step further. And he said, imagine if the world were entirely remote, as in jobs, everything were remote, and someone invented in person. Like, would that be a popular product? Would that be a popular solution? And the answer is almost unequivocally yes. Like, wow, dude, this is so innovative. So it's like, we have that already. We're transitioning out of that. And I think that, again, like I said, I think there is a place for remote work, but I think that you cannot match just being in and around the people who you are working and trying to solve a problem with every day. Not to mention the fact that, there's something called, I think it's the Pareto principle, where like 80% of the work is done by 20% of the people, right?
Also, I think 80% of the stuff that moves the needle is done in 20% of the time.
Absolutely.
Too.
And so point being, I think that when I'm talking about the people who do the work, remote work is great for people who don't want to work a lot. And you can't do that. When I'm sitting in the room with, I mean, truthfully, this is a little bit embarrassing, but there was a time where a week where I had like low motivation and I was scrolling on my phone a lot, like during the workday. And it was noticeable enough that we like had a conversation. They were like, yo, dude, like your heart's not in it right now. If I were remote, I would be able to do that and just, I maybe even wouldn't have steered back on track. But
yeah, maybe you got your stuff done in 2 hours, then you fucking hopped off for the rest of the day. No one would know.
Yeah, exactly.
Huh. And then what kind of, you said they kind of slapped you into place. What did he say, and how did you feel? Did you feel like a piece of shit after? You're like, damn.
Of course I did. And it was it basically they were like, yo, we know the value you bring to the team, but energy absolutely is contagious. Yeah. And so especially when and I want to call them, I think we were all pivotal members, but because when you're that small, but when a pivotal member is, it seems as though their heart isn't in it, that just kind of brings down the energy of the entire team. And that's really what like made me feel gross inside, and not necessarily like, yeah, I know I'm being productive or I know I'm doing my work, but the fact that I could be affecting the productivity of the people around me was like, okay, then no, that stings.
Yeah, and even though you weren't like the main founder or even one of the two, you are a leader in a sense because you were number 3 and you lead a department within the company. So it's extremely important for you to. That's another thing about entrepreneurship, or even if you're a high up at any company, is bro, when you're not feeling it, like you still need to put a smile on. You still need to fucking show up. I was telling Carter right before this podcast, I found out that I'm probably going to lose like $80,000 and like literally 20 minutes before I saw him. And I was like, dude, what am I going to do? Cry about it? No, like I'm not going to miss out on a great opportunity to have a great conversation and a great podcast because something went wrong. And that's like an everyday thing with entrepreneurs, big or small, whatever your company is working on. So well said. All right. I want to talk about before the fame, right?
Okay.
So obviously you get brought on to this company. Part of that is because you have social media presence. Before you started social media, you were in college. I know you get this question all the time. Is college worth it? I personally don't think it's that black and white, but what's your take?
No, I also agree. It's not black and white at all. I talk a lot about on my platform about how people have just removed nuance from almost every conversation, whether that's politics or entrepreneurship or college or whatever it is. And I think a lot of the reason why nuance maybe has been removed is when you think about the social media age and not necessarily just quick dopamine, but the fact that information can be presented to you in such a matter-of-fact extremist view, I think that it becomes very polarizing towards the two black or white ends. And listen, like truthfully, I know some of the stats on this, like college has become 200% more expensive adjusted for inflation than just 40 years ago. And so
200%?
Yeah, so it's twice, it's 3
I would have
times.
Thought much more, to be honest. So but it makes sense.
I mean, nominally, right, based on the number, adjusted for inflation. So yeah, nominally it's far exceeded that. But as far as like what you actually are paying out of pocket today, it will feel 3 times more expensive today than it did 40 years ago.
And do you happen to know how much college, post-college wages have increased since then?
So that's the other thing, right? Wages just simply haven't kept up. And so when people talk about the value of a degree, you are probably talking about a return on investment. As far as the comparison between a college degree and no college degree, it's still pretty drastic. Like your lifetime earnings are over $1 million difference. And again, I think even just talking about averages removes some of necessary context, because if you're going to study a very competitive degree in something like a liberal arts, that's a very difficult job to get, you probably are not going to make more money, and you might actually be more in debt because of that. And so when we talk about like, is college worth it? I don't know off the top of my head if college educated people are making more money or less money or the same money today compared to college educated people before. However, I will say that college is still the best way to move socioeconomic classes. Like there's studies, there's science on this. And so if you are in a lower socioeconomic class, college is still the best way to bring your family, kind of change the trajectory out of that. When I talk about college being worth it, first is the return on investment, which is if you are studying a degree that is in high demand, if you're studying a STEM related degree or something like accounting or finance, law, medicine, whatever it is, those will make money, as in, and provided that you actually put in the work to actually gain the skills. I think a lot of people nowadays as well, you can absolutely just cheat your way through college and get no value out of it. And so I studied computer engineering at Georgia Tech, and that education that I got there, because I put a lot of effort in, was arguably the best investment I made. I mean, I paid in-state tuition. My total degree was probably around like 50 grand, maybe a little bit more, including room and board. And I came out of college making like 150 grand. And so that's not the normal case, but it is an anecdote of like, yeah, this was very concretely worth it for me. The other thing, when we talk about like college being worth it, you and I were both in a fraternity. I think that was a huge part of my college experience. When I came to college at 18 years old, I was not only like a shithead, as just a human being, I was socially like very awkward. I didn't know what it meant to, like be an adult. I kind of knew what I wanted to do with my life, but frankly, I was also very complicit with just sitting in a cubicle my whole life. Like I didn't have a lot of really high aspirations, and going through and sort of what I call the gradual transition to adulthood in a sandbox. That's what I think a university really provides. Mm-hmm. I think so many people, especially young men, think that they have to be making a lot of money at 17, 18 years old. And they're like, I'm foregoing income from 18 to 22. That seems like a mistake. When in reality, you are increasing, if you do it right, your earning potential such that it'll catapult you. It's like a slingshot. When you're pulling back a slingshot, you're not getting any closer to your target, but you're adding power. And that's how I think about an education of any form. And so that allowed me to then at 22, I probably would have never started social media. I definitely wouldn't have had the qualifications to join something like Brev. And the other thing that I think when people are talking about college is they think that they have to go to like a primo institution. Nader, who founded Brev and is now a multimillionaire, he went to community college for 2 years and then transferred to UCSB. And so it's really about like what you put into it. And I think that, can it be a scam? Absolutely. Is it just worth it? Blanket statement? No.
Yeah.
Can it be worth it? Yeah.
You also, there's another way to look at it too. You familiar with Daddy Wellness?
Yeah, of course.
So,
I love Richie.
Yeah, he's a good guy, dude. Really good guy. He's killing it right now. And he made a video the other day. He said, if you go to college for 4 years because you think you want to be a doctor, and then you take all these science classes and you or a lawyer or whatever, and you take all these classes related to that subject. And then at the end of the 4 years, you realize, you know what? Fuck this. I don't want to be a doctor. A lot of people would look at that, oh, wow, I just wasted all that time. He goes, that's not a waste of time at all. That's awesome. You just saved yourself 50 years of working in the wrong job. So college, if you have the means to do so, right? If you get good scholarship opportunities, also people talk about, oh, my family doesn't have that much money. Work hard. I know it's not this simple, but you could work harder in high school. There were a lot of people who just fucked around in high school and went to parties and didn't do anything and didn't study and didn't put in the time and rude to your teachers, didn't show up to the fucking workshops. If you work your ass off in high school, it's plain and simple. You will have a much better chance at having a cheaper college and getting into a better college. And so if you have the opportunity to go to college, even if you don't know what you want to do, it's not a waste because it allows you to figure out what you want to do. It allows you to become this better version of yourself. Like, I became an entrepreneur in college. I didn't get a job or anything after. I cheated a lot. I didn't show up to class. And people go like, oh, well, college wasn't worth it for you, right? Because you didn't even go to class. For me, I think the classroom education itself was not worth it. I didn't think about my teachers knew what they were talking about in the slightest. And in terms of entrepreneurship and starting a business, because they never had started a business before. But I learned a lot about myself, about people, about leadership, about communication in the extracurriculars activity within college. And that enabled me to start social media and start my business right now. So it was worth it for me. But yeah, it's not black and white. And I think, a lot of people ask, it's also like the question I get all the time, should I join a fraternity? I'm 17 years old and going into college next year. Should I join a frat? Or maybe I'm already a sophomore. I'm switching colleges. Should I join a frat? What do you have to lose? Try it out.
Yeah.
I think people think that once they do something, it has to work out or else it's a waste of time. just try it out, and you can drop or you can transfer, you can go somewhere else. If you don't like this job opportunity that you got right after college, maybe it's not something you expect you're going to like that much. You're not stuck there for the rest of your life. Try it out. If you don't like it, switch to something else. Like, that's just part of life. I think a lot of people kind of overlook that.
Yeah, that's just like analysis paralysis at its finest. And I think being decisive is incredibly important, and it's a skill that you have to learn. I was reading a book, and it was talking about Jeff Bezos and the founding of Amazon, and even still how he makes a lot of his decisions today.
Regret minimization or whatever.
Yeah, that one. But what the topic that I really like and how he framed it was when he's talking about a decision, he frames it as a one-way door or a two-way door decision. And the one-way door is when you're leaving the building and it locks behind you and you can't come back in. And then the two-way door is like you walk back, you walk out the door, and then if you have the opportunity, just come back with it. It was the wrong decision. I think that most people, especially the people who we're talking to, you have not even really faced one-way door decisions yet. Like, you just haven't. And so understanding that every decision you make, whether it's your college major, whether it's going to college, whether it's joining a fraternity, whether it's getting into a relationship, all of these things are two-way door decisions. And so make the decision, learn from it, and then if you need to correct course. But so many people will sit in front of that door and
they don't make any decision.
That's
something I'm trying to figure out right now, the relationships thing. Because I think I look at a lot of relationships and I'm like, this has to be like the perfect one, or else it's a waste of time. But in reality, just like business or friendships, like, you need to experience a lot in order to have the tools to find the one that is the best long term. So I'm not perfect at this myself. I'll admit that totally. I think about that all the time, whether it's about relationships or certain things, right? Like, but I do think overall, just waiting for the right answer to pop into your head, it's never going to happen. The best thing you can do is make decisions, and you might go at it for a couple of years and realize it was the wrong one. That's not bad. That's just, you're learning.
Yeah.
And it's a lot better than just sitting there waiting for the right thing to pop into your head.
Absolutely. And I do think that's one thing that school is kind of organized in a way that is the opposite of that, right? School, there is a right and a wrong. And I think that is really not damaging, but it provides a very narrow focused view of how life should work. And so I do think that, and then especially on social media, a lot of the times people will preach to you as if there is also the right decision. And so I think that if you can break out of that or learn that, yeah, there's nuance to almost every decision you'll make. There's going to be positives, there's going to be negatives. There is no right answer. That allows you to mess up in a sense, because truthfully, I don't think it's even messing up. As we've said, you'll gain all the skills from that. But I do think that a lot of people, especially let's say that you're kind of cookie cutter, go through school, get the girlfriend, stick with the girlfriend, and you come out of college and now you're making decisions to where there is no clear right answer. And that's where I think it is kind of an earth shattering moment if you've never experienced that before.
Yeah. You're also not supposed to know the answer. That's another thing that everyone gets wrong. Like, bro, who is it? I think it might've been Alex Hormozy. He was saying, if you know the right answer, if you know what you're not doing anything new, right? Someone the other day, my arch enemy on social media, was making a video about like how I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah, bro, I have no fucking idea what I'm doing. Every single day, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm running into a new problem that never been here before. I'm sure it's the same with you. That's good. That's exciting. And that's going to allow you to level up your character in real life and become a better person. Speaking of leveling up your character, actually, so you said, what was your major again in college?
Computer engineering.
Okay, so that's pretty, I would say, abnormal for computer engineering to join Greek life. Normally it's like business students, right?
Sure.
What were you like when you first joined? And then, ultimately you became the president later on. I'd love to hear about like your growth as a person and how you became, the leader of your friend group.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, when I went to college, I was kind of I think in general, when we're talking on social media, the easiest person you can kind of relate to and talk to is your former self. And so a lot of my audience, or a lot of what I talk to, is thinking about my former self. So when I came to college at 18, I was that cookie cutter person. I have always excelled in school, but not much else. And confidence within my academic abilities, but I tied my confidence to the grades. And then I get into college and I could make friends. Like, I wasn't an outcast by any means, but I didn't have a lot of internal confidence. I thought that joining a fraternity was like the stupidest thing. I thought I was going to be throwing my life away. Actually, I have a twin brother, and my twin brother pledged the semester prior. He was in, he did like a summer cohort, and he back home, me hearing that, I was like, oh my God, what is he doing with his life?
Are you guys similar?
I would say that we're similar, definitely a little bit different. He's about to start medical, or he just started actually medical school at Emory in Atlanta. And so, but we ended up eventually joining the same fraternity.
Nice.
And we've always had the same friend group. So we're very close, but definitely some differences in our personality. He's not a social media guy and the whole thing. But anyways, so I get to college and I didn't really drink at all. And it was for this, not the stupidest reason, but one of the stupidest reasons. I'd been passionate about fitness and I definitely went a little too far down the, this is consuming my life thing. And I was like, it's empty calories. And so I wouldn't drink because I thought it would like mess up my physique. I was pretty like skinny, but peeled. And in the fraternity, I definitely was someone who would admire, and this sounds weird, but it's true, like older guys who could command a room and who everyone just seemed to naturally like. And that sort of natural charisma, what seemed like natural charisma, was really, I was infatuated by it because I felt like I had none. Like and so I kind of consciously, when I joined the fraternity, was like, I'm going to lean into this pretty heavily. I first started off as risk manager, and it was actually this.
A lot of presidents start as risk manager. Luke was saying that the other day
Really?
too, right in your seat. Yeah.
And so yeah, risk manager.
It's a thankless job.
Yeah, exactly. So for those who don't know, risk manager, you're essentially in charge of managing all liability for the fraternity, not only at social functions, but during like pledgeship and other things. And I did it right after pledgeship. And some people do it when they're older. It's a job that not a lot of people want, and doesn't elicit a lot of respect until it's sort of earned, which I think is a great.
Yeah, people hate the risk manager at first.
Exactly.
Did they hate you, or were you because you were taller and you could command some respect? It was.
But I was so young that the older guys did not respect me until you gain some sort of accolades under your belt. I hate the fact that we've referenced Alex Hormozy so often, but I really like that confidence isn't built by shouting affirmations in the mirror. It's by building an undeniable stack of evidence that you are who you say you are.
Yeah,
and I really like that one. And so similarly, I had to build up the respect by actually managing stuff, showing that things were going less wrong than maybe they were previously, or just things are running smoothly. And when I think the mark of a great leader, period, is you enable people to be their best selves, and honestly, you become internally kind of invisible, but externally, obviously, a very good face. Risk manager, I think, is a little bit different because you're only internally, but that meant that when things weren't going wrong, you were doing your job. And did that change pretty quickly into social chair, so the opposite, and then was like, okay, no, I'm really enjoying this. Started like people started respecting me a little bit more. I started gaining a lot more confidence just as a human being, as a leader, and then did recruitment chair, pledge trainer, and then eventually president. So when people are like, how did you get elected to president? By that point, I had so much experience, and everyone knew me for the guy who could get shit done, that I ran against somebody who was on the executive board previously. He was the vice president, and he was the incumbent, if you will. But they just knew that I was externally and internally the right man for the job. And by that point, close to senior year, I joined as a junior, finished off senior year as president. And I just had so much fun with it. And I feel like it taught me a lot. And that way, when I went out into the real world, now I'll walk into a room of anyone who, even if they're very, very accomplished, I understand that they're a human being. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand when it comes to like networking or whatever you want to call it. If you kind of make the person that you're talking to, even if they're a very accomplished person, if it's like, I should kiss the ground before you because how do we even share the same earth or the same air? That dynamic is never going to work if you want to become an equal.
Dude, yes. I was lifting with a friend the other day, and he brought up some ancient, I think it was a Roman tale of this guy that walked. He was like a barbarian, and he walked into Julius Caesar's palace, and he said the equivalent of like, "What's up, motherfucker?" to the king, Rasputin, I think.
Okay.
And the king was like, I kind of like this guy, because no one had ever talked to him like that before. I think that's such a valuable like concept, because same thing when I'm talking with like the founders of, you talk about levels, right? There's people that are just levels above you in life, right? Maybe they're not better than you, but in some ways they are. They've done a lot more. They're more experienced. They're more successful. Their character is a higher level. You still can learn a lot from them, but if you come at it from like this, begging or like, kissing your shoe, or if you tell them you're so much better than me, it's just different. So I think there's a way to communicate with people above you. And sometimes it is just about like, treating them like an equal, and that's how you learn the most. Are there any lessons that kind of stand out to you that you can think back on? Like, wow, that was something that really benefited me and will benefit me that you learned from being president?
I think that there were usually during the term of presidency, and you might have experienced this, there's probably 2 or 3 really, really big deals that happen that are, I would say this is analogous to entrepreneurship. So one of the biggest ones is that the importance of maintaining composure when shit is really and truly hitting the fan, because you are the helm. And at the end of the day, even if you have no idea what's going on, you don't know if things are going to be okay. You don't know if you're going to get kicked off campus, whatever it is. You need to go and talk to 80 guys and instill confidence in them. And that is where I think that there's the lesson, first of all, which is how to actually maintain that composure and how to be a leader and instill that confidence in someone. And then there's the other one, which is how to be able to deal with that internally, because some people would do that and it would eat them alive. And that's when, you start having like stress related, either health problems or whatever. And so I would say that the ability to guide somebody through a hard time, or a group of people through a hard time, is one that I definitely learned through being in a fraternity. And
how do you do that for everyone listening?
Yeah,
I fully agree. By the way, I know a lot of people who kind of crushed and crumbled under that kind of pressure.
Yeah, I think that I think transparency is important, but you have to choose what you want to be transparent about. And so what I would often play back on is that you want to be as honest as is honest as you can, but as closed as is necessary. And so I would discuss like, hey, this is basically what's happening. Share what I needed to. This is our plan to get through it. And so that everyone, nobody likes when they hear murmurs through the grapevine that like, oh my God, are we done? Like, is this going to happen? And so I would try and dispel those by being like, hey, this is what's happening. These are the tough conversations that are happening right now. I don't see any way that we don't get through this. This is what it's going to take, either from me or from you. And here's how you can support me. I think if you can bring people into that as well, they feel very good because they're like, wow, I'm a part of this. I actually am playing a role in this. And then when everyone is sort of buying into that vision of, okay, instead of just he's going to mess it up and it'll be bad for the rest of us, there is a sense of collective ownership. And then as far as like closed as is necessary, you have to understand that part of being the leader is that you will make decisions that could only be made by you and shouldn't be made by a collective, because either they would make the wrong decision or there just wouldn't be a consensus at all. And so I think that was one that was sort of my playbook as far as how to deal with those things. And luckily, I didn't have to. I have yet in my life not made a truly catastrophic decision, so I haven't had to do truly like disaster control in that regard. I don't know how I would play that. That's one that I'm sure will happen at some point in my life, so I don't have the experience to comment on that. But yeah, I would say that was the lesson, the biggest lesson.
That second point you just brought up, making decisions for the group, I think is really valuable. I remember, this might even seem like silly to some people, but I remember it was my first year as president. So similar position, we had the choice between these 2 big DJs who were about the same level of popularity. They cost about $20,000 each. And the guy who was helping me set up the party was like, we get to pick between these 2. Which one do you want? And I didn't really care, to be honest. I just wanted everyone to be happy. So I threw a poll in the group chat. Do you want Dombresky or do you want Weathen? And the vote was like 54-46. So pretty 50-50, but like, Dombresky won. So I pick him, and for the next for the rest of the year, people were just grilling me about it. You fucking idiot, bro. Why would you pick Dombresky, bro? Weathen's showing me videos of him performing, bro. Like, this is what our fucking party could have been. Even after it happened, this is what our party could have. Just grilling me. Even my best friends, I went over to their place, and they were all grilling me. Bro, what do you do? Of course it's going to be 54. Like, there's more young kids in the house. They have no idea what they're talking about. Like, they've never been to a big party before. Like, this dude's going to suck. And I just got grilled for an entire year because I wanted to empower the fucking group. But thinking back on it, that was a great decision. I should have just fucking picked one. And I told everyone that there was a choice. I should have just picked one. I shouldn't have even told anyone that there were 2 options. I should have just said, this is who we're getting. And the truth was they were both awesome DJs and it was an awesome party regardless. But sometimes when you give people more alternatives and more options, even when you give them great ones, they still will hate you for it. So
Yeah.
it's interesting, like how you can learn those really valuable, like lifelong lessons about leadership in funny situations
So
like that.
I like what you said there, because I think that, yeah, it's easy to trivialize lessons no matter where they come from. But even if you look at some of the most accomplished people in their life, they might draw on like an anecdote from their childhood when they're like 7 and they learned a lesson about like, not getting stabbed in the back or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I think that, yeah, lessons, I think there are so many parallels. I often talk about, Brev was an AI infrastructure company, very technical. However, I also often say that no matter what you can boil it down to, it all comes down to human relationship. Like we're all just meat sacks who happen to have a consciousness who can communicate with one another. And so I think that lessons can be drawn from even the most seemingly innocuous situations.
Yeah. That brings up a good question. Especially because you've been in a very similar position. How do you motivate and enable those around you as a leader when sometimes you're not able to pay them as much as they deserve, give them the external motivation? How do you, whether it's guys in your fraternity who you need to get to sign up for some sort of alumni chair position, or convincing them to clean the house for the guys that messed it up the night earlier, even though it wasn't their fucking trash? How do you motivate the guys on your team within your business that are getting paid half of what they should because it's a startup? What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think that fundamentally what you have to do is give them the tools to where they can and then become internally motivated, which is an incredibly hard thing to do. But I think so many people will lean on external incentives to try to get somebody to do something. But when those dry up, then they're not motivated to do anything anymore. Yeah. And so oftentimes, the less sought after positions, whether it's in a fraternity or even like during the startup, there's stuff that you have to do that are just really boring, whether it's going through the list of potential customer emails and writing cold emails. Like that sucks. I think
telling the fucking nerd on the dev team that he has to go like make a sale or something really out of his comfort zone.
Yeah, exactly. And so
the salesman just quit.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that the most powerful tool I've seen thus far is giving them a sense of ownership over whatever they're doing, to where they feel as though they have, and they oftentimes do, but have control. I think that so many leaders, it's often called like micromanaging, but I think that so many leaders will feel the need to put whatever the task is into a tight box and be like, this is what you're doing. Don't go outside the lines. Don't color outside the lines, because this is how it should be done. If you can enable people to where they feel as though they have autonomy and give them as much as possible, then they feel like they actually have a stake in the game. Part of the reason why startups why you can pay them far less and they'll still do the work is because you'll give them equity. And so it's like, I owned a percentage of Brev, and so it's part of part of it is my baby. Yeah. And so when you tie not only give them ownership, but when you can also tie their own responsibility, but then also their own praise. I think that giving people praise is one of the best things you can do as well. Like reward good work. So many people are so quick to punish bad work, but if somebody stepped up and did a task that no one was willing to do and they did a great job at that, call attention to that. Get in chapter, recognize that. In stand-up, in a startup, recognize that. And I think that a lot of companies will do this in a very formulaic way, and then it very quickly becomes disingenuous. Don't set up meetings to talk about the wins of people for the past week, whatever, because then it's like, okay, now I have to come up with a win for Joe Schmo who didn't actually do anything, and then it just becomes it just becomes a participation trophy. But it's like, no, this guy stepped up, he did what he was supposed to do, and now gradually give him more responsibility. That's how new leaders are made as well, is when somebody does what was asked of them and goes above and beyond, reward that by giving them more responsibility. And very quickly, I think that people calibrate. And so there were people in the fraternity who would do something, they'd be great at their job. They had no aspirations of becoming president, for example. So then they'd sit in their band and they'd be like, no, this is what I like to do. And at that point, one of the best things I did was delegation, in the point where by the time I was leaving, the fraternity did it really and truly, apart from important external stuff, kind of run itself, because everyone was so good at their job, and I felt like they enabled themselves, but also I helped enable themselves to do all of those things, that it never felt like I had to micromanage.
Yeah, I used to, yeah, well said. I fully agree, by the way. I used to go up to kids when I really needed their help because there was like, 30 or 40 communities. And I would literally be like, bro, I need your help. I can't do this without you, wasn't really true. But like when you're trying to convince someone to do something and you can't pay them, like, I need your help, bro. Like, there's not many guys in this house that can do, the alumni chair because they're just not good at talking to older people. They get scared. They're fucking idiots, whatever. Like, you're the only guy that can do it. And I can't run this house without you. It's just as important as any other role. And if you make them feel like that, if you enable them, then they can do a great job. And that's leadership 101. If you can't do that, you're not going to be able to build and run
that's
a
just
successful company.
EQ, right? That's just emotional quotient.
Sure.
Like, I think that, understanding what motivates other people. My mom has a really effective analogy, which she says that understand the currency of different people. Because some people it's money, some people it's praise, some people it's feeling important. Right. And so if you can understand the currency of other people and pay them in that currency, then it'll be a lot easier.
Yeah, dude, there was this one time when I just couldn't get anyone to show up for chapter, right? 25% attendance, like people just didn't show up. They didn't care. And I remember like saying, if I don't get, what was it? Like 85% attendance this next chapter, like there's no party happening next week. Everyone hated me. I canceled the party. Everyone fucking hated me. And it was like a big just shit show. Couple weeks after that, I tried switching around the lingo, right? Exact same situation pretty much. No one's showing up. I said, all right, here's the deal. I just talked to our national advisor. I got approved for a party, 2 weeks from now. If we get 85% attendance for all chapters this month, I'll convince him to give us $5,000 for a sick DJ. The truth was I already had the DJ and everything booked anyway because it needs to be planned out. But I simply switched it around from a punishment to an incentive. Even though it was already happening, even though it was the exact same terms, I said, if you guys get your friends to pull up and you tell them this party's going to happen, if we make this happen, I will make sure this party happens for you guys. Almost every single person was there for the rest of the month.
I love that.
And so it's just little things like that allow you to become a great leader. And, it's just funny how it comes from, Greek life. There was another thing. This one time, I had like negotiated for us to get like a $20,000 turf in the front of the house.
Okay.
And there was weeds in the front of the house. We had enough money for the turf. We didn't have enough money to take out the weeds. So I asked all the guys, I'm like, hey, I've been working on this for like 2 months to get us this turf. Can you guys come help me pull the weeds out? No one fucking showed up. It's 105 degrees out, Tucson, Arizona. And I'm just like, it'll literally take me like days to pull these weeds out by myself. There's 40 people in this house and no one will fucking help me. I was so pissed off. So I got like the biggest, baddest dude in the house, big jack dude covered in tats, to come. It was like a movie script to come outside, take a picture of me pulling weeds for about 2 minutes and send a message in our group chat. Your fucking president has been out here pulling weeds by himself for 30 minutes. You guys are assholes, especially after he's been like arguing his ass off to get this turf for you guys. Like, this is embarrassing. 10 minutes later, every single person is out front helping me. So we like motivated them through guilt in a way. I think you have to try a lot of different ways like that to make people pull up and contribute. So it's all valuable.
Absolutely. I think, you did touch on something there, which I think is actually really important when you're talking about leadership as well, which is that a good leader truly believes that no job is below him, but that his time is most used effectively doing what he's doing. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in the position. Yeah. The CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen, is very common on talking about that. Like no job is below him. And if the person who you again think is like in leadership, you might think, oh, they think they're high and mighty. So the example that I would give in my fraternity was like we had kitchen duties, and it's like, yeah, I'll be down there and doing my kitchen duty. A ton of people wouldn't do their kitchen duty. And it's like, okay. And then even the chef we had, he's like, they got the president doing kitchen duty. I'm like, yeah, like why would I not do kitchen duty just because I'm president?
Well said, dude. Hell yeah. Well, we're kind of running it to the end right here. So, dude, what's next? So obviously you just got some money for yourself. You had a nice exit. You're working for the biggest, fastest growing company in the world. Do you plan on being there for a while? Is there anything later in life that you'd like to try? What's next for you?
Yeah, I would say that at least like in the immediate term, we just joined NVIDIA. want to continue growing Brev, hopefully turn it into $1 billion software arm of NVIDIA. I think that there's a lot of potential there. We've already done a lot of great work in the first month of just kind of disseminating the name without NVIDIA throughout NVIDIA. It's a big company, but everybody knows about the 8 new young guys who came through. They know that we get shit done. They know that we have high energy. A problem that NVIDIA is facing right now is that because they have grown so fast, a lot of their workforce is kind of like slowing down because it's something crazy. Like 70% of NVIDIA employees now are millionaires, and something like 30.
I read that somewhere online too. That's nuts.
Yeah. And so there's a non-insignificant portion of that has like multi-million dollars. And so a lot of them are like checked out, and understandably so. So for us to come in and bring a breath of fresh air, I think they really like that. I want to continue that going. As far as like how long I'll be there, I don't know. I'm really enjoying the job right now. I do have aspirations eventually of starting another company, this time as a founder. I think that I don't know exactly what that would be in. I think that building a consumer product, especially after, the social media and everything, feeling like I kind of have a little bit of a thumb on what people like and how to motivate people to do different things. I think that'd be really cool. It'd probably still be software. That's just what my experience is in. But I'd love to have an app that you have on your phone and I have on my phone that people are using every day.
Dude, I can't wait to see it. And once again, congrats for all the recent success. And there's many more to come. So
thanks, Lucas, for having me on. I'm also excited to continue following the Squid House journey and see what you continue to grow this into. I think that you have a lot of potential here, and you're already executing on it, but it'll only get better from here.
Thank you, bro. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. For everyone who hasn't seen Carter's content yet, I think you have more followers than me at this point. Like, dude's content is way more helpful than mine. So I'm gonna link all of his stuff below. Go check him out. Go give him a follow. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and thanks for coming on, bro.
Thanks so much, man.